it's important just to find that dedicated time, dedicate that time. If you need a reminder to put on your phone, put it on your phone and just do that. And identify, what do you enjoy doing? What makes you happy? What is your passion? If that's music, if it's dancing, whatever the case may be, travel, whatever it may be, identify that and just do it. And you don't have to be sorry about doing it, because you're doing it for yourself, to help recharge yourself and to renew yourself.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How Do You Medicine podcast, where we talk to healthcare professionals doing medicine their way. I'm your host, Dr. Nancy Joseph, aka The Dynamic Doc, and today our esteemed guest is Nurse Anthony Young. So he has been a registered nurse with over 20 years of experience, but he started his academic journey at the University of Maryland School of Nursing, where he got his Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. And then he went on to get his Master's of Science in Nursing at Emory University in Atlanta, but he had a concentration in public health at that time. So from there, he's continued his studies and currently working full-time, but in addition to working full-time, he is currently studying adult gerontology primary care at New York University. So in general, even with all of that he has going on, full-time working and studying, he is passionate about making a positive impact in his community. As such, he is the chair of the local chapter of the Black Nurses Association, and he's one of the board members for HEAL Haiti, that's HEAL Haiti, which stands for Health Education Action League for Haiti. And it's a group of professionals with an endeavor to bring dedicated to bring health education reform to Haiti. So we're really kind of fortunate to be sitting down and having this unique conversation with Nurse Anthony. Not only is he a nurse, he's a mentor and just really an overall leader and mover and shaker in his community. And we'll be talking about all of that and more, and how he does medicine in this podcast episode. Welcome to the podcast, Nurse Anthony.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited and ready to dig in.
Yes. So, let's really start from the beginning, right? In general, when we're talking about Black nurses, only 9.9% of registered nurses are Black, much less Black males, right? So oftentimes we see, female nurses. And so talk to me about your journey and how you came to the decision to be a nurse.
So that's good that you would bring up those statistics in regards to nursing. So as you mentioned, about 95, 96%, let's say 92%, low 90s are females. So then about 7 to 10% of that are male nurses. So it's a minority within a minority. So you just have them piled on top of each other. But how I started my journey, one thing that many people don't know, I started my journey in healthcare as an office assistant in an OBGYN office, where I was calling patients for follow-up visits and then also filing medical records. So that's how I started my experience in healthcare, transitioned to a nursing assistant. And then while I was a nursing assistant, I was in nursing school. One thing that
you've always been working education, like you've just been
pretty, for the most part, I would say, yeah, pretty much for the most part, yeah. One thing that I was reflecting on, and I had a conversation with my mother a couple of weeks ago, she sent me this letter that I wrote when I was in kindergarten, just to talk about the actual journey that I've been on. And in this letter, I was very forward thinking, even as I'm forward thinking right now. So what I stated specifically in that letter in kindergarten, and the question was, what do you want to be or what do you want to do when you grow up? So in that letter, what I stated is, I want to be a doctor in the military and attend Virginia State University. Now, remind you, I said kindergarten, and I had those very details in that letter. So that reflects how forward thinking I was even at that age as being in kindergarten.
Right.
But just to fast forward a little bit in reference to why I selected nursing. So I have a lot of individuals in my family who are in healthcare. The biggest inspiration was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was a nurse. So definitely continuing her legacy And then in doing my own research while I was in high school, et cetera, being able to identify that for me, there was more flexibility in regards to what you could do in nursing and different avenues and different aspects that you can impact. So that was one of the reasons, my grandmother, and then obviously the flexibility that drew me in that direction. And then I will always say this, that I never regret the day I decided to be a nurse. Almost 21 years, that'll be 21 years in May. I never regret the decision that I decided to become a nurse. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
I love it. Yeah, I was going to ask, because we know, you were the youngest of three, so I didn't know if, it was like kind of legacy, like I saw this picture, in healthcare, in my family. So yeah, now you answered it. Listen, come on, grandma.
Oh yeah,
Blessings.
Grandma.
Not listen, grandma with the blessing. And so, what have you felt like has your journey been like when, as a kind of a male nurse, like what do you feel like has been the most challenging part, just really about your journey in general?
As you know, being in healthcare in general is just challenging. And I have seen the transition over time, or the evolution in healthcare. So healthcare in itself is just a challenging industry. The patients are sicker. Obviously, the patients that I cared for when I worked in a hospital weren't as sick as they are now. Mm-hmm. Most patients now are transitioning based on their stability into home care in their home or other outpatient settings to provide care and services to them. The biggest challenge that I have experienced in my various roles in healthcare, either in a leadership role or being a staff nurse, is just the whole dynamic of staffing. There's never enough resources to meet the needs in any type of healthcare environment, be it at a hospital or an outpatient environment. And especially with COVID has highlighted many of those gaps that we have in healthcare. But staffing is a big piece. And I feel right now that we're all running on fumes. Healthcare is running on fumes, especially with the staffing shortages, which was an issue before COVID. So a lot of the things that are going on now are just exacerbated because of COVID in this case. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is that you have to work for 2 or 3 different people, in a sense that you're doing all this work, and it's very overwhelming. It's very taxing. As we know, a lot of healthcare professionals are burnt out because of the work that has to be done to make sure that we're providing the quality care to the patients that we encounter on a daily basis. So it's work from the heart, that work from the heart burns you out physically. So that has been a big challenge for me, and I have seen it in every role that I've been in. So that's been a constant throughout my career in healthcare.
And actually, that's a great segue. We'll talk about these many roles, because listen,
exactly.
One thing about Nurse Anthony,
I was thinking about that.
Listen, he has worn many hats, and so we'll talk about some of them. But a couple of ones that I mentioned is the National Black Nurses Association. And Hill Haiti, talk to me a little bit first about the National Black Nurses Association and how you got involved with that. Were you just kind of a member at first, and then now, because now he's a chair now, ladies and gentlemen.
So many people don't know this. So this is a good opportunity for people to learn even more about me. The National Black Nurses Association is a national organization of Black nurses throughout America. I was actually a member when I was in nursing school.
Okay.
So 20 plus years ago. And then I got out of school, passed my board, start working. So life happens, and then I fell off. And then when I moved to New York, I rejoined the National Black Nurses Association. I joined the local chapter, the Greater New York City Black Nurses Chapter. And then that's the chapter that I am the chair for the Men's Committee. And I started that role September of last year, 2021. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. In that role, I have the ability to impact with the team or the individuals on the committee to impact how we shape, how we approach men's health. So recently we had an actual Zoom self-care chat. So men's self-care, how can men do more with self-care? And it was the second part of it. We had the first part December of last year, and the second part we did February of this year. And we did it in collaboration with the Gentleman's Factory. And that is an organization that actually creates a space for African-American males, minorities to come together in a space. They actually have a location in Brooklyn where men can come and have meetings, different get-togethers, connections, and things like that. So we collaborated with them, just talking more about how males can be more proactive with self-care. If that self-care to you is running, there was one of the panelists is a part of a run group. So if you want to run, if you want to cycle, if you want to just read a book or get a massage, a person in the actual session said manicure, pedicure, whatever that looks like to you in regards to self-care when you're stepping back from your daily work with your family, with your friends, with your work, what are you doing for yourself? Because if you're broken down, how can you help to build someone else back up? So
come on, preach,
yeah,
come on, sermon.
So that's the biggest thing. Yes, that's the biggest thing with being the chair of that committee, just being able to have an impact in the community, especially with males, because as you see, most males and then African-American males are in a bad situation in regards to health statistics, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, those types of things. So what can we do to relieve that stress? Because a lot of that stress leads to other things, hypertension, diabetes, et cetera. So how can we do the self-care that will help to promote our health better? So that's the Black Nurses Association.
The men's committee.
And the men's committee. Mm-hmm. And then Heal Haiti, there's a colleague of mine who I connected with initially on LinkedIn who talked to me more about Heal Haiti, what it was. And obviously you had mentioned earlier about my my master's degree in public health from Emory University. So I definitely have a heart for doing community work, public health work. So definitely being asked that, having that opportunity to connect with Heal Haiti and be on the board has been very impactful for me. Because that's one of my goals, to be on a board where I can have an impact in what's going on in the world. And obviously, specifically, since one of the focuses is on helping to develop, restructure the healthcare system in Haiti, and even more specifically, looking at how we can build up the workforce of nurses in Haiti. So we do provide support through scholarships and other avenues to nurses there within Haiti so that we can build that workforce up. And also there are health fairs that have been done in the past. Since I've been a part of Heal Haiti, we haven't been there because of the different challenges that are going on in Haiti. We haven't been able to get actually to Haiti, but in the past they've had health fairs where they've been in the community to educate, do blood pressure screening, et cetera. So that's what drew me to Heal Haiti. So I'm excited about being on that board to be able to speak to how we can improve and collaborate to improve health and the systems within Haiti.
So let me ask you this too, and I feel like some people may be thinking this, you know, just so everyone knows, you know, Nurse Anthony Young is not Haitian.
Correct.
But,
correct.
But he's still on such a board. What would you say to those people who feel like, you know, I have to be that in order to be of help to that population? You know what I'm saying? Like some people may have seen Heal Haiti or heard of that organization, say, oh yeah, good work. Let me know if y'all need, you know, either volunteers or just, you know, some, you know, fundraising. We'll give that. But, you know, I'm not Haitian. So I couldn't possibly be, you know, involved in the executive board, you know, much less, you know, to the capacity that you're involved in. What would you say to those people?
I would say to anyone, just before I give more clarity on it or more context with it, is don't be afraid to jump in where you may be uncomfortable. So definitely with that being said, I did ask those questions of my colleague who invited me to be a part of it. And there are many people on the board and also the executive board that are from Haiti, and they have the Haitian background. So one thing that it does for me, it allows me to expand myself as an individual. to learn about a different culture, because everything is just not centered around America.
Right.
Everything is just not centered around being African American or Black. There are other categories to Blacks. So it's just not African Americans. You have Haitians, you have Africans in South Africa, Ghana. So learning about all of those different aspects has been the draw for me. And I don't have to be uncomfortable because, like I said, I'm surrounded by individuals who are on the board and on the executive board who are from Haiti. We also have someone on the board who actually lives in Haiti. So we have someone on the ground. So any decisions that we're making on the board are informed by individuals on the ground, one, and then two, individuals on the committee that have Haitian background. Either they came from Haiti at a certain age to come to America. So I'm learning a lot about Haitian Creole and stuff like that. So it helps me to expand as an individual. So I would definitely say never be fearful of something that you're not familiar with, because there are connections that will help to support you on that journey.
I love that. And I love that as a general rule, right? Like, here we're talking about, ethnicity, maybe not even being from a country, but wanting to help that. But in
Correct.
general, just having a general common goal of improving wellness and improving representation upon the healthcare field, no matter what your background is, right? And I think what the very important message in what you just said is, you're surrounded by support and resources that allow you to do that expansion, right? And I want to let's actually talk a little bit more about how important it is to expand yourself, no matter what profession you're in right now. Of course, because the nature of this podcast, we're talking to healthcare professionals, but even for people who are listening to this who are not a healthcare professional, talk to us about how important it is to expand yourself both professionally and in terms of culturally.
Correct. So just a few words that popped in my mind as you were talking and talking about that piece is stagnation. We don't want to be stagnant. So sometimes we can get comfortable in our day-to-day and what our lives entail. And there always has to come a point where you have to expand yourself or challenge yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be stagnant. So that's my perspective. Everyone may have their different perspective in regards to that, but it allows me to do something different, to do something that I'm not familiar with, or be involved in something that I'm not familiar with. And it helps to expand your repertoire, if you want to say, as a human being, if you're able to challenge yourself in doing other things that you may not be familiar with. If it's learning another language, if it's traveling more, if it's shifting your career, you may be in healthcare or you may be in another industry, going into another specialty within healthcare, something that's going to challenge you to learn more, be a better person, whatever that looks like for you. I think that's important to be able to find those opportunities where you can challenge yourself and be outside of yourself and to be uncomfortable, because you can't grow if you're not uncomfortable. So a lot of times, and even myself, I have that challenge every day, is that I just like to be comfortable in my own space, etc. But you can't grow, you can't impact, you can't make the changes that you want to make in life, if that's your goal, if you're just in your bubble. You have to come out of that bubble and feel uncomfortable. And then that's going to help you to invoke or impact that change that you wish to make.
Growing pains. There's a
Growing
reason.
pains, exactly.
There's a reason why it's painful to grow. And but you're building new buds. You are evolving. Evolution is not easy or comfortable, but it is a new space, right? You're just kind of like when you're trying on kind of like a new thing, a new style, a new job, a new role. You kind of have to kind of move around a little bit, get yourself comfortable into that new space. It's kind of like when you throw on a new shirt, right? You kind of, fix yourself. You gotta, it takes time for that transition to happen. So what would you say to people who was like, you know what? I hear this, Anthony, I actually want to do the changes, but how do I get there? Right now, I just see maybe an organization that, okay, they seem like they're doing good work, right? And you mentioned even becoming a nurse. You didn't start off like, that you started off in a different position. So what advice would you give someone who, I do want to become the chair of this organization eventually, or I do want to be on the board. I don't even know how to get started. Where do I just say hi to them? Do I specifically go to LinkedIn and friend somebody on the board? What advice would you give to even navigate to get to that level?
So definitely if the interest is there. So I'm just going to backtrack in regards to my experience. So if it's an organization, and before I was approached, I didn't really know anything about Hill Haiti. So I was approached in regards to that. But if there's something that you're interested in, I would definitely say if it's a board, let's just say that as we're talking about now, Hill Haiti, go on their website, do your own research, your own investigation of what their mission and their vision is to make sure that aligns with your intent and that it aligns with your passion. Because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're in an organization that the vision and the mission is not aligned with who you are as a person. So that's something very basic. Just go on the website and be your own private investigator and put all the pieces together. And then that will then help you to write down any questions that you may have, so that when you see that person on LinkedIn and you say, well, can we have a conversation? Can we go to Starbucks and talk about this organization a little bit more? You're coming with questions, and then that's going to help them to know, okay, this person is serious about the organization. They already know about it. They know about the mission and how they may fit into it, because obviously they're just not going to let you on the board. They have to be able to vet you. And if you present yourself in a way that you've done your research, you're asking appropriate questions, that's one step that you're getting closer to that opportunity of being on that board, because you've done the research, you know about the organization, you know how that organization aligns with your passion or your intent. So I think that's the basic thing that needs to be done. And then if it's something that you want to do or something that you want to see yourself doing, find someone that's doing that role. Someone else, a colleague of yours that's on a board, and speak with them. What has your experience been like being on the board? What have you done? Why did you select that board? And you get their thoughts of what their experience was like to see, okay, how do I need to emulate that from that individual? So you can find colleagues or other friends that may be on boards and see what their experience is like, in addition to doing your own research about the organization that you are interested in.
Perfect. And then, so then you would say, if you eventually want to become a board member, so you'd say reach out to a board member first, or is there a hierarchy, well, maybe first reach out to, an administrator, or, you know what I'm saying?
So while you're on the website, they always go to the context. So basic places that I always go to, you look at the vision and mission, and you look at activities and see what the organization has been doing over the past few years or whatever the case may be. And they always have a contact section. So that may be their executive administrator. I don't know, whoever gets that email or has a telephone number. And I would say reach out to them and say, my name is Anthony Young. I am X, Y, and Z. I've been reading about organization X, and I'm interested in being on the board. Is there someone on the board or within the organization that I can speak with to talk with that organization member more about what the organization does and how I can be a part of the board? So always use that contact information, email address or telephone number, and reach out. And then from that point, someone will then follow up with you, or should follow up with you, to let you know the next steps.
Perfect. And that's if you want to be in leadership, right? But that's the first. But if you want to be just involved, I guess you would say just to start going to events.
So correct. I'm glad you brought that up. So then you may want to also get involved and attend events that the organization holds first before you get on the board, so that you can connect and understand better what that organization is about. And then you can see, okay, is this a good fit? Because you can have a conversation with that individual and you can have good connections, but if you're in the actual environment, you're able to connect with people, have conversations, and do the work that they're doing, then you can then see, okay, yes, this is something that I want to do. So I'm glad you brought that up. Being involved doesn't mean just being on the board. Being involved is doing the work on the grounds. So definitely volunteering and putting your best foot forward in that respect. And then obviously, if you want to be able to make decisions about what the organization is doing and being on the board, you can take that step but being actively involved is definitely an important step in the process too.
So talking about, and I'm assuming that would be the same if you want to be in an organization, again, like Heal Haiti, which is really just kind of like, a group of professionals in general wanting to bring health education to a particular place. But of course, if let's say we took that desire and we're saying, hey, I want to get more involved in the National Black Nurses Association, and that would be the same, because what's the website for, actually, while we're at it, what's the website to learn more about the Black Nurses Association?
N as in Nancy, NB boy, N Nancy, A apple, nbna.org. And then I'll have to pull up the Heal Haiti one because I don't remember that off the top of my head. I just want to make sure I get it correct. So I'll pull that up before we close out for
yeah, because I think it's healhaiti.org, but we want to make sure.
I'll look and make sure it's correct. But usually for the Black Nurses Association, some organizations have student chapters at universities. So Black Nurses Association, they have local chapters at schools of nursing. So even nursing students can get involved. So you don't have to be an RN, you have your license, etc. You can join the organization as a student nurse. And then that actually gets you in where then you can speak with individuals who are nurses. So I spoke about the example, if there's something that you want to do or someone that you want to be in their role, you want to be a director, etc., talk to someone who's already in that type of position and see what is it like? How did you get there? So in this respect, if you have a student nurse in the National Black Nurses Association, they can then, as a member, they have a benefit where they can then have mentors who are registered nurses, who are nurse practitioners, so that they can connect with those individuals. Individuals can mentor them and help to guide them along the path that they should go based on their interests. So that's one of the benefits of being a part of an organization, even at the student level, is that you haven't gotten into the profession yet, but you still can learn about what nursing is like, or whatever the organization is. In this case, what nursing is like. You can possibly do shadow days. So if you are a student nurse and you want to do pediatrics, or you want to do critical care, ICU, you can then say, okay, you have a mentor that's in the organization, and they may allow you to shadow one of their nurses if they're a leader at a local hospital, so that you can see what is that specialty like, so that you can then say, okay, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do this based on my experience during my shadow day. So definitely networking, connecting with people, and having a mentor are important pieces.
So actually, that's a great segue to mentorship, right? Mm-hmm. So again, as I said, Nurse Anthony is a man of many talents, which you're finding out. But one of the things that he does do and is passionate about is mentorship. So talk to me about, because some people would say, I mean, I got a lot going on. I don't know that I feel like I've arrived yet. So can I be a mentor? Should I be, you know what? I don't know if that's really, so talk to me about what was your journey in deciding to even be a mentor to, anyone. And then also, what would you say for someone that is hesitant?
Mentorship is very important. And one thing that I would say that I would have done differently many, many moons ago when I became a nurse is to identify and mentor for myself earlier. That's one thing that I didn't do. And I don't regret the decisions that I've made with the jobs that I've had in my path, but having a mentor, that person can help to stir you in a more fine direction, per se, if you want to put it that way. So definitely having a mentor earlier would be something that I would change if I could rewind for my career. But having a mentor and being a mentor, that's the question, being a mentor is important to me. One, because I was a nursing instructor at a school of nursing. So I've been able to instruct and help develop, well, individuals who are registered nurses now. So I can't say future nurses because they're nurses now. I'm at this point because that was a few years ago. So being able to see that impact in their lives and seeing that change and being able to give them advice from my experience, because we all have experiences and we can always say, well, maybe you should do it this way. And I'm saying that based on my experience so that you don't have to go down the same road that I did. Or maybe you should look at it from this perspective. So having that mentor helps to set the context or give you better perspective, because if you're not in the profession, there's certain things obviously that you don't know. And you need that knowledge and wisdom from someone who's been doing it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever the case may be. So I've had an opportunity to mentor individuals informally. And these connections have been primarily on LinkedIn. Because I have on LinkedIn specifically in my profile, it says a mentor to future nurses, present nurses, and nurses who are wishing to do a career change or career shift per se. So with that tag on LinkedIn, I've gotten individuals that send me messages to say, oh, wait, can I speak with you, etc. So I've had several individuals who I've reached out to and we spoke over the phone just to talk about where they're at in their nursing program, or they may be recent nursing graduates and they're having challenges with finding a job. So I've had that opportunity just informally to mentor from that respect. And then a formal opportunity I've had to mentors with the American Nurses Association. I believe that was about maybe 3 years ago, where they had a program and I filled out the application, and then it was for a year. It was a year time frame where they pair you with an individual based on your background, that person's background. So I had an opportunity to connect with this individual over the phone. And we set time on a weekly or every other week basis where we would connect, or we would either communicate via email, just in general, as a relaxed environment, talk about where you're at in your career, what questions do you have, how can I be of support to you? And we had to actually log those conversations in a database that was structured by the American Nurses Association. So that was more structured. So those were two opportunities, or a formal and informal process of mentorship that I have been involved in. So I love it because it allows me the opportunity to give my knowledge, to give my experiences to other individuals who are going into nursing. And even if you're not going into nursing, I can still talk about what do you do when you're trying to go into a career? What are just some of those basic things? It's basic things that you can do to get yourself in the door. And you don't necessarily have to say that, okay, I'm not an engineer, so I can't give you advice. Yes, I can. Find an individual who's an engineer. I can say that to you as a nurse. If I'm not in your industry, find someone that is in your industry to be a mentor. Make sure that you have a resume, a cover letter, all those things. There are basic things that we've all done in our job search in the past that we are able to inform other individuals, regardless of what industry they're in. But most of my mentorship and advice has been directed, obviously, towards nurses, since that's my background.
Actually, that's great. Listen, you're reading my mind, because that actually was my next question. Like, what are your top, first of all, what I hear you saying time and time again is really reiterating the power of networking and the power of LinkedIn.
Yes.
Right? Because one thing I will say is oftentimes, depending on your career, but oftentimes people don't use LinkedIn as much. And I know me as a physician, you know, our path's a little bit is kind of more structured. Like, this is what you do, this, okay. Centralized, you know, application system for med school, centralized application system for residency. What, you want to subspecialize? Centralized application for subspecialization. You get in, you know, we have what they call the match process. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, this is the program you're going into. Great, you're getting out of training. Then usually there's, you know, centralized, there's like an academy. Usually ACOG is for, you know, obstetrics and gynecology. For allergists, we have two different kind of governing bodies that just post jobs. So we almost, you know, are not we're not as adverse or as well-versed in LinkedIn, right? We're just like, you know, we go to these organizations that are specific to our specialties. Oh, you're looking for somebody? Great. And there's that, right? But what happens when what you've alluded to, there's a career change, or there's a desire for a career change. And now you're kind of like out of your element. You don't really know, okay, how do I optimize LinkedIn? Is my profile even what it's supposed? Because some people, we just put the basics, okay? Where I went to
Yeah.
school, what I work at now, the end. We don't have, LinkedIn has a little thing to kind of let you know how complete your profile is. Most of us are just like, yeah, I'll, pick my friends from med school. So yeah, they're in my network and things like that. But here you are, you said so many people have benefited from you optimizing your LinkedIn profile, right? To say the things that you are able to do and the ways that you're able to help. And so I want you to kind of talk a little bit more about the power of LinkedIn and what are like the top three, like, listen, no matter who you are, these are the top three advice I'd give you if you're doing for your career transitioning or career change, whether you're thinking about it or in the middle of it.
Exactly. So the power of LinkedIn. So it's very powerful. I have gotten a couple of jobs because of my profile on LinkedIn. So one of my jobs when I lived in Atlanta, was I searching? I don't think I was searching for a job at that time. In my mind, I was.
Okay.
But on paper, I wasn't searching for a job. And I got this message from an executive director at a local hospital in Atlanta. Are you interested in X, Y, and Z? And at that time, it was quality improvement. And I said, well, yes, I am.
How did you know?
I said, yeah. I said, read them out. I said, yes. So went through the whole process. Yes, I'm interested. I responded back to him. Did the interview, got the job, done. So that's one example that I experienced the power of LinkedIn is that I got a job because one of the executives reached out to me. So your LinkedIn profile has to speak to what you want to put in the atmosphere. What do you want? So you definitely have to have what your background is. Where did you go to school? Are you a part of any organizations? And you have to be active on LinkedIn. So it has to be a thing where people are seeing you post in regards to those activities. You are a part of a health fair or whatever the case may be. Identifying those things so individuals know who you are. And then obviously they have a section on there where you can see other people who are on LinkedIn. And one thing that I do very strategically, I periodically go through that just to look at people and see what their background is, to see then how can I connect with that individual, because I don't know everything.
Right.
But the people you have in your network can then build you up to a point where, okay, I don't know it, but my friend over here on LinkedIn or this person that I connected with knows it. So I strategically go through, and if I see someone based on their background that's interested, I will read through their profile just to make sure that there's a connection between the two of us. And then I will send a connection request to them. And then that's a way where we can have conversation or send them a message in their inbox and start the conversation that way. So you definitely have to put yourself out there because network, you talked about that. I've talked about that. You definitely have to network. So even in a virtual space, you have to network. You just can't be there and expect things to happen. Certain things may just happen, but you still have to put yourself out there. So you have your profile, you make sure it's up to date because then you may put it out there and you may not keep it up to date. So then that's
like
another.
You've been out of med school for 5 years,
Exactly.
sis, but it says to present. Like how you can't.
Yeah.
You've been out of school you've been in med school for 8 years. How to present? Like you're still there.
Okay, what have you been doing? So in addition to keeping that up to date, keep your resume or your CV up to date because you never know. You get someone that says, okay, well, send me your resume, send me your CV. You want to be able to say, okay, send. You want to be on ready. And that's one thing I'm going to do later today. I have to go through my CV and just update it and just put some things in there based on recent occurrences. But keep that up to date. Keep your LinkedIn profile up to date with organizations, school, your skills, your skill set, because you have skills. You may speak another language. You have your own business. So all those types of things you want to be able to put on LinkedIn so people can know who you are. Because mind you, as I said, I'm looking on other people's profile, people are looking on your profile. And if they see something that, okay, well, this person may have their own business. Well, I need that skill set that Anthony has or Nancy has. Let me reach out to them. So you have to make sure that you put on LinkedIn what you want other people to see so that when they see it, they see that skill set or what your experience is, and then they will then reach out to you based on that. So it's all a part of being your best marketing agent for yourself, at least, so that you can paint that picture of who you are and what you bring to the table. And then other individuals can say, well, how can that person fit into my organization? And then they can reach out to you. Just in my situation, like I said, I didn't reach out to him. He reached out to me. Anthony, are you interested in this quality improvement position? I said, oh, yes, I am. You read my mind. So, hey, you have to put it out in the atmosphere. Otherwise, it won't come to you.
I love it. Put it in, listen, put it in the atmosphere, manifest it. Otherwise, it won't come to you. Put that in the atmosphere and then act accordingly. You know what I'm saying? Put it in the atmosphere, but put in the work.
And one thing that
yeah, go ahead.
Just came to my mind too is in that whole process, if someone reaches out to you, you always have to close the loop. So follow up with them. So if someone reaches out to you and has a conversation with you, if it's virtual or whatever, always have a follow-up email or text message, whichever will be most appropriate, to thank that person for your time. It was valuable, etc. Because that keeps that person, that keeps you in that person's mind. And then if periodically, if it's 6 months down the line, you want to send that person an email, I am doing X, Y, and Z. You always want to keep that connection going, because you don't want to say, okay, because then it's going to become a situation where the person says, well, this person must just been taking advantage of the situation and they just wanted this and then one and done. So you always want to make sure you follow up or close that loop. So my biggest point is make sure that you follow up and close that loop of communication.
Yep, and nurture a relationship.
Nurture, right? Yes. That's the
kind of like right.
The point I was trying to get to, nurture relationship. Yeah.
Right, like if you meet, like let's say you go on vacation and you meet a wonderful group of people, or networking, or more specifically, you go to a conference. You meet a great group of people who have, like a nursing conference, and you meet some people who really have a passion for doing public health and maybe doing some great work. You guys are all excited. Then you leave the conference and you go back to your respective residences. But then you never talk to them again. Now, where are we? Did he want to follow up? Did he want to do something? Are we collaborating at an event? Are we not collaborating? For example, and maybe you can speak to this. You were I don't remember which event, but you happened to meet the founder of the Gentleman's Factory. And then you ended up, doing an event. But you could have been like, oh, that's dope. Okay, great. And then go about your business.
So I have a perfect story behind that. So the event I went to was for individuals that have a small business.
Okay.
And my question in my mind, I don't have a small business. So why am I going? I don't need to go. I don't have a small business. My next step in my thought process was, I need to go, regardless if I have a small business, because I don't know who I will meet when I get there.
Nice.
So that was my strategy. That was my thought in my mind. But I had the question, as you mentioned, about, well, I'm not sure if I can or should I do this, except you have those doubts in your mind. And I had that doubt with that event. I said, I don't have a small business. Do I need to make up a business so I can go? I don't know what I need to do. But I said, well, I'm going to go because I don't know who I'm going to meet. I don't know who I may connect with. So I'm going to go. And I went, and I didn't even know he was there. I assumed that obviously since this event was put on that he would be there. I didn't know. I actually got there late because I was coming from work. So I was in the back, but I stayed around to the end. When everybody started to disperse and the crowd gets thin, that's when you have the opportunity. So when you go to an event, always if you can, stay to the end, because you never know, those people who you could not see because of the crowd may still be hanging around, and you may be able to connect with that individual when the crowd disperses. So that's my story behind that. That was very important because I was not going to go, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I said, no, this is not a fit for me. I don't have a small business, but I said, nope, I'm going to go, and I did.
Yes. And, either stay to the end or come in the beginning, right? Yes. Because everybody comes in the beginning, maybe with energy, or I'm meeting someone or a business, a colleague, he's not here yet, she's not here yet. Okay, let me just kind of start conversation, as you said. right? It's not as overwhelming. There's not an overwhelming amount of people, and you've kind of already made that connection. Or later on, at the, if again for whatever the circumstances, you got there after the more kind of the middle part of the event. You stay a little later to be like, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm
Yeah.
such and such. What do you do? Oh, okay. You know what? That's amazing. You could, if we change contacts, are you? Is it? I'll have to make sure I reach out to you. Is it great if we exchange contacts? Great. And then you do whatever that is. Like maybe they have a business and you follow them on Instagram, and then keep you in their mind. I like, your stories all the time. Hey, this is great. I commented, I said, hey, I'm actually working on something you'd be great in. I'll keep you posted. Like that, those types of things. That's kind of like, he has me in mind. She has me in mind. And she is really thinking about working with me. And I think those are like great tips to, no matter what organization you're in, no matter what profession you're in, no matter what the pivot is. I want you to talk about how did you know, because you've talked about this different, Hatcher Warren, right? Nurse Anthony's worked in general, his umbrella is a nurse, but he's worked in various, capacities in that qualification, in that role. How did you know when it was time to pivot from one role to another, or one area of expertise, right? Because there may be some nurses out there who's saying, man, I've been, a pediatric nurse for a while, but I want to transition this way. Or I've been, inpatient, but I want to do this. Like, how do you know when it's time?
I'll answer that question. If you don't mind me going back to how I met Jeff, the CEO of Gentleman's Factory.
Yes, Jeff Lindor.
Jeff Lindor. It wasn't a thing where I went up to him directly. As
Okay.
you know, we went with Jet Black for Ghana. I am a person where I believe that you should always have something on, be it a pair of pants, sneakers, shoes, hat, necklace that gets people's attention, that stands out. You should always have a piece
Statement piece.
that's a statement piece that stands out.
Yes.
So I had a certain coat on, a pea coat on, that they multicolored pea coat that got his attention. So that got his attention, and then that's how we started the conversation when I actually talked with him. So whatever your style is, I can't say that, but always have something on that is a statement piece, be it a tie, a shirt, a scarf, whatever the season is, because then that gets people attention. And that was the funny part of that, is that he saw the jacket, that got his attention, and then that brought us together. So I wanted to make that point, because I think that is very important, that you have to come out.
Nurse Anthony, let me tell you, if he don't do nothing else, he's about to spout, he's gonna style on you. You feel me? Listen, don't listen. This again, he is out here from bags to t-shirts to hats to whole ensembles. Nurse Anthony's gonna listen, he is giving. He does not, he's stepping. So great, you're attention grabbing. And then he's, hey, I remember him. You were the one with the multicolored pea coat at that event. Oh yeah, I remember you. As opposed to staying in the back.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to get out there. You have to stand out. If you don't stand out, it's just going to be
stand out.
Yeah, you have to stand out, definitely. So to answer the question at hand, so if you're making transitions or shifts to other specialties, inpatient, outpatient, whatever the case may be, in my experience, I came to a point before I made that transition, that I wanted to do something different, or I wanted to experience another aspect of healthcare, of nursing. So I started out inpatient oncology, started out at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, inpatient oncology. And then I went to graduate school at Emory. So then I moved from Maryland down to Georgia. And I was working inpatient. I was still doing oncology there in Atlanta. And there was an opportunity to be a research nurse, a clinical research nurse. And obviously coming from the bedside to being a clinical research nurse, okay, how does that mesh? How does that gel together? It's two different worlds in respect, because now I'm caring for a patient, giving them chemotherapy, fluid, blood products, the nine. And then you go to a role where you're on the other end, where the patients are now being enrolled in oncology-based research studies, and you have to work them up, making sure that they meet eligibility criteria and those types of things. So we talked about my interest in public health. So I went down to Emory for my master's degree in nursing with a concentration in public health. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I need to make sure that what I'm doing is in line with what my degree is. So obviously being in public health and then clinical research, there's a connection there. In making sure that we have certain therapies, certain technologies available to treat cancer and other diseases. So that's that transition there. So you have to have a reason why. Why am I making this change? Or you could just go because you just want to go and do something different. But there has to be some level of reason or intent to make that change so that it will keep you there for whatever that time frame is. You may be there for 2 years or 3 years, not say that you're going to be there forever, but that experience is going to be for a reason. You have to make sure you put yourself in that place so that you can gain from that experience what you need to gain. Because if you're just there and you don't know why you're there, it's not going to serve its purpose. So you always want to have the answer to the question, why? Why am I doing this? And then what do I want to get out of this? So I can definitely say from each transition that I've had, I've always identified either before I made that transition or shortly thereafter I made that transition where I was able to identify why. I'm trying to think of another transition. I was in a leadership position and I went to be what was I doing at that time? I can't remember exactly, but I was in some leadership position, clinical supervisor, whatever the case may be. And I went into a part-time nursing instructor position where I taught in the lab for health assessment. So I was doing my full-time job, clinical supervisor, nursing director, whatever role I was in at that time, and then also teaching. So I was doing those at the same time, and one was part-time.
A multitasker.
A multitasker, and I'm not a Jamaican, but I've had 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. I'm not, but I have, to be honest, to be transparent.
I am done. I love it.
In that transition, because I love to teach. So in that role, I said, okay, well, let me ease my way into it. I did that for maybe 6 months where I was teaching on a part-time basis and then still in that leadership role. And then eventually I transitioned to being an instructor full-time because of my passion and desire to teach and to give back. So again, it has to go back to being connected to your why. Why am I doing this? And what purpose is this transition going to serve for me? Because you don't want to waste your time going into something and you're just doing it just to do it. And then there's no value that you're going to take away from it whenever you decide to go on to the next journey or the next chapter in your life. So identifying your why, what is your intent and your purpose of making this transition? And then once you have that in play, or you understand what those answers are to those questions, then you would be clearer in that new role that you're trying to transition to. So your why, your intent, and then the purpose.
I love it. Your why, your intent, and your purpose.
Exactly. So you don't even have to go to church tomorrow. We've already
Listen, come on now. You've been preaching this whole time. Listen. You've been preaching. So speaking of transition, so now, you're working full time, but you're also currently studying gerontology. So talk to me about, because really you could just not, right? Like you could be where you are now and be good, right? Because you're helping your community, you're involved in your community, and you're working in your current job as a, healthcare professional, as a nurse. So a lot of people would be like, I'm good, I'm chilling. But you have decided to kind of pursue something more. What has motivated you, fueled you in that pursuit?
Well, currently I'm in a role as I work in hospice and palliative care. So I'm a manager in that space. Um, and I'm always thinking, so going back to my initial story where I shared my letter that I wrote when I was in kindergarten about what I wanted to do, I've always been a forward thinker. So even though I'm in my role now, I'm not going to be in this role forever. I'm just being honest. I'm transparent. I'm just being honest. I'm not going to be in it forever. So what can I do to develop myself for the next role that's out there for me? So I'm currently in the nurse practitioner program, and my specialty is adult gerontology, primary care. My specialty will be palliative care because I enjoy hospice and palliative care, and I love adults. I love my elderly people. I love it. I love them. So any population I work with, that will be the population. So my specialty will be palliative care and hospice. So going through the program will give me the knowledge and the skills that I need to be able to function in that space. And then the terminating part of the degree will be a doctorate in nursing practice. So then it will give me additional skill to know and understand how to translate research that's done into practice. So how can we make sure that we are implementing best practice within the work that we do on a daily basis with our patients? So in making that decision to say, okay, I'm going back to school to do X, Y, and Z to advance myself, helps me to move in the direction of where I want to go. Where I want to go, I definitely want to go back into teaching. I definitely enjoy and have a passion for, again, giving my knowledge and helping to grow and develop the future nursing workforce that will be out there. And then obviously being able to be a champion for hospice and palliative care. Many people don't have, and I have to actually finalize mine's, advanced directives in place, a living will, healthcare agent. So if I'm not able to make decisions on my own, who's going to be that person to make those decisions? And then what do I want at that time if I am sick and I need to be resuscitated? Do I want to be resuscitated? Do I want to be intubated? So those types of decisions we need to have made now, have those documents in place, our advanced directives, and who that individual will be that will make those decisions for us. So then that's why I want to be in that place, or in that space where I can say, okay, this is important to have in place, and also go to the statistics that show that there's a low percentage of Blacks, African Americans, and minorities that actually are prepared for that stage of life, who are selecting hospice, who are given the opportunity to start palliative care. So if you get a diagnosis for chronic kidney disease or even congestive heart failure or heart failure, over time, your body is going to decline. So you need to have something in place. If I get to that point where I can't breathe, I am retaining fluid, et cetera, and I can't function as I should, I need to have a plan in place. What do I want done? What are my wishes? Who's going to be my healthcare agent? And then do I want hospice? So I want to be a champion for palliative care and hospice. And obviously, since I am Black, I am African American, if I'm able to go out in the community and speak that message based on my experience, one, as a nurse, based on my two, as my experience in hospice and palliative care, I believe that other Black and brown people, minorities, will be more receptive to, okay, oh yes, I need to get this in place. I need to get these documents in place. And I need to have this conversation with my nurse practitioner, with my physician, so that when that time comes, because that time will come for everyone, when that time comes, I will be prepared and we won't be going crazy to say, okay, everyone's going to be fighting, or no, they want to be intubated. No, they don't want to be intubated. And you're having those fights and those conversations where you should be trying to make that individual comfortable and the family going through that grieving process of losing a loved one. Because I see it every day in hospice where you have family members who are not prepared. And you can't totally be prepared for death. You can't. I understand and I agree with that. But there's certain things that should be in place, as I mentioned, advanced directive, living will, healthcare agent, et cetera. And then making sure that as providers, again, nurse practitioners and physicians, that we're introducing palliative care early enough to patients so that they can start to put those things in line. Because I see time and time again where patients and family members are enrolled into hospice and they truly don't understand what it is. And I think having that conversation further upstream where they get their diagnosis of heart failure or chronic kidney disease stage 4, that individual should have that conversation with their primary or whoever made that diagnosis, so that when they get to that point, they would not be as surprised and they would be a little more informed. So I say all of that to say this: I want to be a champion for hospice and palliative care. So that's why I'm in the space where I'm at currently in graduate school, so that when I'm done, I can have that expert knowledge and skills to be able to speak to that in the community and also to practice.
Yeah, and man, you make such a great point, because a lot of times we're so scared of the future that we don't plan for it.
Correct.
Or we're just, we kind of close our ears and close our eyes and like, okay, I'm living for the moment, YOLO, all that stuff. And, and oftentimes we don't realize the power in planning, because great. I mean, yeah, you'll leave, but it would be great if there was a plan in place that concisely, conveyed your wishes, as opposed to person A saying you'd want this, but person B saying I disagree. Now person A and person B, you're trying to decide what you would want when you could have made that decision early on, that, while nothing's happening, or while not as much is happening, to say, I've sat with myself, I thought about it, this is what I want, I've written it down on legal paper with
Correct.
whatever legal personnel is necessary, and this is what I want, and I want you guys to honor that. But instead of just kind of guessing on what your loved one would have wanted, I think what a wonderful and powerful thing for you to purpose, for you to desire. What I would like to help people, especially minorities, be more forward thinking in that role, so that transition period that is inevitable for us all is granted to be even difficult, but at least we can take some of the challenges off, and we can already, okay, it's like having a retirement plan. Everybody's gonna have to retire somehow. Some of them, some unplanned at an unplanned time, some at a planned time. But the point is, you're not gonna work for the rest of your life. Of course, but in general, people don't plan on working for the rest of their existence. And so again, having a plan, and I think it's amazing that you're just like, I see this, and I've now been forward thinking to gain the expertise in order to better equip myself to help people, again, with that purpose, again, with that intention, and with that why, like you said before. And I think what that's great, what a powerful desire to have, especially for people that look like us. I want to pivot a little bit, because I wanted to ask you what's coming up next, and you so eloquently have literally told us, this is where I'm going, this is why I want to go there. And I want to change a little bit from healthcare and really talk about your love for the arts, because you are an Ailey ambassador, my friend. And let's talk a little bit about that, because I think one thing that, again, specifically in the Dynamic Doc brand, we really try to have people, be, to celebrate multifacetedness, celebrate multidimensionality. And so, you would think, all the healthcare stuff we talked about, okay, makes sense. He's a nurse. Okay. He's done all these roles. He's been whatever. And then he's like, wait a minute. Hold on. He's an ambassador for Ailey. Talk to us about that. How you got that role, and what it is, that type of thing.
So you speak to a very important point that we all try to achieve every day is balance. So yes, I am a nurse, I do X, Y, and Z, but we definitely have to have balance and self-care. So as you mentioned, I am a fanatic of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And I will say this, one of the reasons, the primary reason was because I wanted to be closer to my family. I moved to New York. The second reason was because I wanted to be closer to being able to attend events. So if they send a message out, we have X, Y, and Z coming on Thursday, I can go get on the train and go. I don't have to worry about getting on the plane and have to plan it out. I'm already in the city. I can do it and enjoy it. So for a few years, I've been on I'm a part of the Young Patron Circle. So that's like a subcommittee or group within the Ailey Foundation, where we help to raise funds for different events for Ailey. Specifically, there's a spring gala that occurs usually in June, and we help to push that in raising funds, et cetera. So I'm a part of that group, the Young Patron Circle. So that has given me joy and love because I've been able to experience certain things that many individuals don't experience in regards to meeting the dancers and everything else that goes along with it. Like coming up at the end of the month, we have an opportunity to actually go to, and I've been to the Ailey School several times, I've taken dance classes, et cetera. So we have an opportunity at the end of the month to actually go to the Ailey School, and they have an event for Ailey 2. And then we're going to do like a mixer after that. So we always have an opportunity to mix with the dancers, the artistic director, Robin Battle, artistic director emeritus, Judith Jameson. So having an opportunity to really connect in the environment has bubbled my heart over. You can probably see if you were in my apartment, I have pictures posted, everything in the world. I have socks for Ailey, I have hoodies for Ailey, I have beanies for Ailey, I have pins for Ailey. So if you want to say I'm a fanatic and you wanted to diagnose me, if there was a diagnosis for that, give it to me because I am an Ailey fanatic. But even outside of Ailey, I love dance, I love cultural things, I love music, I love live music. So Afro beats, jazz, classical. So I always try to find opportunity to go to events where that's going on, be it music, performances. So I went to a recent live performance by an ensemble at Carnegie Hall. So that was amazing in a sense that I've been to Carnegie Hall once for a tour, but I've never been there for a performance. So I saw that and I said, okay, I'm going. So I went, I enjoyed it. It was live music, ensembles, different groups, etc. So any opportunity that I have to experience dance, music, or just being able to step back from the day-to-day is very important to me. So that's the other part of me. Obviously, I do work. I need money to do all of this, so I do work. And obviously going to school at this point is helping me to go to that next step in my career. But definitely the self-care and balance comes into play where I am engaging myself in dance performances, music, traveling. That's another, making sure to travel both domestic and international. But at this point in my life, I have a bug for international travel. So that's where I'm going to be. So because you learn about different cultures, you connect with different people. So that's the passion that I have for traveling, is that connection and learning about different cultures and different parts of the world. Because as I mentioned earlier, the world is not centered around America. It does not revolve around America. There's a whole lot to explore and see out there. And I definitely want to see as much as I can in the life that I have left on this earth.
Yeah, actually, once again, reading my mind, Miss Anthony. I was gonna bring that up and talk about balance, right? And we've talked about, and during this episode, all the different aspects of you, right? We talked about the student you. We've talked about the hardworking full-time worker you. We've talked about the mentor you. We've talked about the creative you, right? With the love for the arts of various forms, the traveling, right? All of that is you. And of course, we celebrate multidimensionality, but you mentioned a word on multiple occasions, that balance. So how do you achieve that balance to where you're even able to do all those things? Because you don't just belong to, let's say, the Alvin Ailey, oh, you don't just support it, right? Like you're all the things that we've talked about you being involved in, you're actively involved in. It's not like I'm just a member of this and I'm a member of that. You've actively involved in that, and you're actively a nurse, and you're actively a student, and you're actively a world traveler. So how do you balance it all?
I haven't, I'm not as successful as I need to be with it, but it's more top of mind that I have to remember, okay, I'm doing my schoolwork or I'm working. I have to find time for me if it's just something basic, just going outside and walking. If it's just a crazy day and you really can't get to Carnegie Hall or wherever, if you just go outside and just take a walk, get some fresh air, go to the park, just something as basic as that. Or as I mentioned, I love music. So I am also, just to go on a tangent for a second, I collect vinyl records. So I have a vinyl record player here. And I was playing it earlier, just to set my mind, etc., with some jazz. And I would just turn that on and turn the lights off, maybe light a candle, and just put yourself in a space where you're just in the moment and you can relax yourself, decompress from the stresses and everything throughout the day. So I've mentioned this word a lot, and you've mentioned this word a lot too. You have to be intentional about it, and you have to set the time aside. So the day is going to be crazy. It's going to get away from you. So you have to make sure that you set that time aside and say, okay, an hour each day or whatever the time you want to allot it for, and you know your day better, you can say you can do it in the morning or you can do it in the evening, whatever works for your schedule. You have to find the time and just do it. If you need to put a reminder in your calendar on your phone, because you are going busy every day, you're going real fast. If you need to put a reminder in your phone and say, okay, 5 o'clock is here, from 5 to 6, I am going to run, I'm going to listen to music. Or once a month on the third Thursday of each month, or at least once a month, I'm going to attend a musical event, or wherever the case may be. You want to be able to commit to do that for yourself, because if you don't do it for yourself, who's going to do it for you? So you want to make sure that you carve out that time, dedicate that time for yourself, put a reminder on your phone, and just do it and be intentional about it, because you're going to go and just burn yourself out. And if you don't have that time to just step back and recharge, how are you going to be able to give if you're burnt out and you don't have the energy and you haven't recharged yourself? So it's important just to find that dedicate that time. If you need a reminder to put on your phone, put it on your phone and just do that. And identify, what do you enjoy doing? What makes you happy? What is your passion? If that's music, if it's dancing, whatever the case may be, travel, whatever it may be, identify that and just do it. And you don't have to be sorry about doing it, because you're doing it for yourself, to help recharge yourself and to renew yourself. I'm going to read this, and I'm glad you have it right there, but it's a good segue based on what I've just been saying. So don't wait for your life to happen. Make it happen. I like that quote behind, and I had to say that. I had to say that.
Yeah.
Based on what I was saying, I had to say that. Don't wait for your life to happen. Make it happen. Balance and self-care. Make it happen.
I love that. Don't wait for your life to happen. Make it happen. Yes, I love that. And it speaks to the intentionality that we've talked about during this episode. And we've talked about, I was going to ask you, and you, again, roll right into it. I was going to ask you how you deal with burnout. And you've talked about the self-care. You've talked about balancing your key. Sounds like what I, been hearing from you time and time again is your key to balance, to all the things that you love and all the things that you do from a career-wise to personal is intentionality. You set the time for each thing. I want to be involved in Alvin Ailey in company. So I set the time to do that. I want to further my career, so I'm intentional about taking extra courses, adding, degree seeking activities or classes, that type of thing. And again, by all means, of course, there's been challenges on the road, right? We talked about in the beginning of the episode being not only a male nurse, but being a Black male nurse. So as we round out this podcast, I want you to talk about what has been throughout your career, what has been the most challenging. We've talked about challenges, but throughout your career, what you feel like, especially as a Black male in general in healthcare, but specifically, we talked about your roles. What have been the most challenging part of your journey thus far?
That's a good question. I know I had alluded to staffing, but that's more
general.
It's not putting a nail right on the head to identify
Nurse Anthony's journey.
Specific challenges. Let me see. That's a good question. I would say the biggest challenge for me, just putting my whole career into perspective, is finding my niche, where I fit into the whole spectrum of healthcare and then nursing. So that's why I'm very clear, even right now, where I want to go and what I want to do in regards to teaching, because I love to teach. And then it has not been more than the last 3 years where my mind has been in the space in regards to hospice and palliative care. So that has been one of my challenges, is being able to find my niche. Where do I fit in? How do I want to contribute? What legacy do I want to leave in healthcare and in nursing when that time comes, when I say, okay, I'm done. I'm retired, I'm done. So that's my biggest thing. I would say it has been my challenge, is identifying where my niche is, because I have had several roles in my career as a nurse. And a part of those transitions was me seeking to find where I fit in. Mm-hmm. So I would say that has been one of the biggest challenges. But I know I'm in a space now where I have identified where I fit into healthcare and where I fit in nursing. And just think about it. I am almost 21 years in, and I'm at that place now. So just think about, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to come out of school and it's year one and I'm going to have it all planned out. I know what I want to do. It's going to change over time. So you have to be kind to yourself and allow yourself to make those transitions, and don't become complacent or stay somewhere just because you have to stay there. If there's an opportunity that's going to help you to grow and it's in line with your why, your intent, and your purpose, my say is do it. If it's in line with those things, do it. So definitely be kind to yourself in making those transitions when those opportunities come up, as long as it's in line with your why, your intent, and your purpose. And look, it has taken me several years to get to that point. So it's not going to happen overnight, but you have to be, again, this word is keep on coming up, intentional. You have to be intentional. It has to be an intent for everything that you do. Otherwise, it's going to be as if you're just meandering through life and there's no purpose and there's no direction. So you have to definitely have some level of intent. You don't have to have it all mapped out. I'm definitely not saying that, but there has to be some initial intent as to why am I doing this? So that's what I would say has been the biggest challenge for me, is just finding where I fit in healthcare and in nursing.
Would you say that would be your biggest advice too, is being intentional? Like if someone's like, I want to be a nurse like Anthony, or I want to be like in these leadership roles like Anthony, would you say that's like your biggest?
Be intentional, yes. Also identify a mentor or someone that is possibly doing what you want to do, and having that conversation with them so that you can get a better understanding of what your journey may look like or what your journey has to look like to get to that point. Because in certain paths, there are certain things that you have to do to get to certain places. So you definitely want to have those things in your mind that I have to be a supervisor, if that's the structure. It may not be the structure in your industry. I may have to be a supervisor first and then become a manager before I can be the director. So you have to have that in your mind. And then if you go to someone that has been along that path, they can give you that advice so that you can then build yourself accordingly. So definitely being intentional, but then also finding someone that you can connect with as a mentor that can help guide and direct you through the process.
And I wanted to close on this. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I am most proud of where I am today. I do have clarity, as I mentioned, on where I fit in healthcare, where I fit in nursing. I'm very proud about where I'm at in working towards, as I mentioned, I'm not there yet, in making sure that I am balanced. So I'm just proud of the direction that where I'm at now in this moment and the direction that I'm going in. That's what I can say I'm most proud of.
I love it. Find your niche, be intentional, do things on purpose, know your why, power of networking in LinkedIn, and being proud of where you are and where you're going. I love it. And I think this is a great way to end this great, very knowledge driven, knowledge packed, inspirational podcast episode. Really just, commemorating or celebrating what it means to be a multidimensional health professional, to have different loves in and outside of healthcare. And so with that, I think it's a great place to end today's episode. This episode in our podcast, I'd like to thank our esteemed guest, Nurse Anthony Young, for joining us today on this wonderful episode.
I'm excited to be here. And then can I say one more thing? If
yes,
you don't mind?
Please.
I always say this to my nieces and nephews and any other individual that says, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I always say, don't be like me, be better than me. So I always say, I don't want you to be me because I'm not the best. I'm not the I'm not the perfect person. What I say is to my nieces and nephews primarily, don't be like me, but be better than me.
I love it. Be better, be intentional. I'd like to, again, thank Nurse Anthony for joining us in this episode. And I'd like to thank you guys. You all are listeners. And of course, as you know, as many of you may know, there's also a video version of this episode on the YouTube, The Dynamic Doc. And, I really appreciate all of the things you've talked about today. And for everyone listening, please, if you learn anything from this podcast today, I think we've highlighted to the importance of being totally and fully you and living on purpose for a purpose. And that also is our mantra here at the Dynamic Doc. And please make sure to check out our previous episodes. Thank you for tuning in. And please be safe, be healthy, be blessed. Stay tuned. Bye, guys. Thanks. Peace.
Be awesome. Thank you.